Imagine for a second that you are Daniel Ek, the founder and CEO of Spotify. You have decided to challenge Apple's leading position in the podcasting realm. And what's your strategy for that? Step number 1 is that you raise a lot of capital by making your company go public. Step number 2 is that you spend $500 million on buying other podcasting companies. And step number 3, and by far the most important one, is that you try to accumulate as many awesome podcasts as possible on your platform. And in this video, I'm gonna introduce you to the 5 most awesome ones. The first one is a real gem. It is called the Happiness Lab with Dr. Laurie Santos. If you're familiar with my channel, then you know that I'm kind of obsessed with the topic of happiness. And Dr. Laurie Santos is something like the godmother of happiness. She is a professor at Yale, and there she has taught the most popular class ever, which is about positive psychology. So now she has expanded this topic a little further by creating her own podcast, and in each episode she breaks down step by step what we can do to create a happier and more positive life. So her podcast might cover topics like mindfulness, solitude, does money make us happier, and how can I deepen relationships with the people around me. And what I find so cool about her podcast, besides the fact that she's really entertaining and that the podcast is really well made, is that it's all based on science. There is no new age, self-help, hippie kind of talk, but instead it's all well-researched and well-documented scientific facts. So if you're a little bit of a happiness nerd like I am, then definitely make sure to check out the Happiness Lab or check out one of my previous videos about happiness right up here. Podcast number 2 that I can really recommend on Spotify is called Making Sense with Sam Harris. Now, if you don't know Sam Harris, you should definitely check out some of his books, but as a quick summary, he is best known for being a big fan of meditation, for being a neuroscientist, an expert on Islam, and for arguing Ben Affleck on national television. Apart from all of that, he also makes an awesome podcast. The format is really pretty loose, which I personally enjoy. It is long, in-depth conversations with really interesting guests. He talked with Andrew Yang, Noah Harari, Jack Dorsey, Daniel Kahneman, just to name a few here. And they are usually having conversations that you walk away from 1 or 2 hours later with the sense that you gained a completely new point of view. You know, it's a little bit like listening to 2 of your incredibly smart friends discussing a topic that you know next to nothing about, and you're just happy to absorb all the knowledge and the information that you can get from it. That is exactly how Making Sense with Sam Harris makes me feel. The third podcast on Spotify that I would recommend to anyone out there is called Philosophize This. Now granted, this is a little bit of a dark horse on this list. And it's not because it's a very new podcast. In fact, it's been around since 2013, but it's because I don't know much about the guy who does it. He's called Stephen West, and he's clearly very knowledgeable about philosophy, but that's pretty much all I have on him. So it is not the kind of podcast that you listen to for the sake of the host, which actually can be refreshing. With Philosophize This, it is all about the content. Did you ever wonder what exactly Aristotle's viewpoints were and how they were different from Plato's? Would you enjoy knowing more about the teachings of the Buddha? Or maybe you're more into modern philosophy and you want to learn everything about Kant, Hegel and Nietzsche? Well, Philosophize This has you covered. Also, with this podcast, the production value is really high, and on top of that, the episodes are very easily digestible because they're usually not longer than half an hour. Since the topics that are being discussed there are quite complex sometimes, I do enjoy though giving this podcast my fullest attention. So I would just take time out of my day to relax on the couch, put on my headphones and listen to an awesome lesson about philosophy. And I never once finished an episode without the feeling of me being a little smarter than before. Alright, going from a well-scripted podcast to a podcast that is not scripted at all, the Tim Ferriss Show. Of course, many people are familiar with Tim Ferriss for this book, or this book, or this book, or maybe this book. But they don't know that by now the podcast has actually become Tim Ferriss' most important revenue stream. And you can tell by how frequently he uploads that he really treats it as such. Which, good for us. Being really well connected both in the business and the personal development realm, Tim Ferriss has a variety of incredibly interesting guests. There's Brené Brown, Jocko Willink, Tony Robbins, Josh Waitzkin, Eric Schmidt. The list goes on and on and on. And since I truly enjoy Tim Ferriss's analytical and detailed approach to each and every one of those conversations, I am excited that he is on Spotify and I can listen to him wherever I go. The Tim Ferriss Show was actually the first podcast that I regularly listened to way back in 2015, and I can honestly say that it has broadened my horizon immensely. It has changed how I think about business, it has changed the way I see other people, it has changed the way I approach risks in life, but this is some topics for another video. And if you want to check out other videos of mine in the future, make sure to subscribe to this channel. For now, all I want to do is urge you to check out a couple of Tim Ferriss's episodes. I guarantee you will not regret it. The fifth podcast that I want to share with you on our list of Spotify podcast gems is called The TED Interview. Have you ever watched a TED Talk and after 10 or 15 minutes you felt like, I actually really would like to know more about this. I would like to hear more from that speaker and really let him expand on that topic. Well, in that case, the TED Interview is for you. It is a podcast where the head of TED, Chris Anderson, interviews some of the most prominent speakers that have given TED Talks over the years. Naturally, the talks revolve a lot around science and culture, but I personally really enjoy that. Already with 10-minute TED Talks, I felt like this is freaking awesome. So much knowledge available for free whenever I want. And now with a TED Interview, those people can go a lot deeper even. So think of your favorite TED Talk, head over to Spotify, and who knows? Maybe you're lucky and that person actually got interviewed for the TED Interview. Now, those 5 podcasts that I have shared with you here so far are all well established. They have millions of listeners every week, and rightfully so. But I want to share with you one little bonus recommendation, a new and upcoming podcast of somebody already quite famous, but not famous for podcasting. She has recently made the leap into the podcasting realm, and I'm really excited to see what she will do with it. This person is Brené Brown, and her new podcast is called Unlocking Us. Brené Brown has written a bunch of bestsellers in the last couple of years, and on top of that recently had a Netflix special where she talks about her main topic, vulnerability. So now, after being a guest on podcasts for so many years, she has launched her own podcast, and it only has 2 episodes out. It started literally this month, which is March 2020. But I'm really excited to see how this will evolve. In her description of the podcast, she kept it relatively vague, saying that she is looking for more meaningful conversations, and I'm sure she's gonna be able to find that through podcasting. So I think this could be one of the most interesting, exciting podcasts in 2020. Definitely make sure to subscribe to that one as well and follow her journey. So this is it. Here again the list of Spotify podcasts that you really shouldn't miss out on. The Happiness Lab with Dr. Laurie Santos, Making Sense with Sam Harris, Philosophy This, The Tim Ferriss Show, The TED Interview, and Unlocking Us with Brené Brown. I'm sure if you dig into them, they're gonna keep you busy for a while. But if you have any other good podcasts, especially in the field of self-development, self-improvement, information, I'm really eager to hear about it. Let me know down in the comments below, so we have a little bit of an exchange here of what our favorite Spotify podcasts currently are. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, talk to you next time.